Hello, everybody. Zon gets 134 here.
And as always, I'm Average Joe Squad, coming to you live from my house, again.
And welcome to the first episode of 2023's Remember the Hyphen, the show where we look at comic books, movies, and everything in between. And I'm so sorry we didn't film anything in December.
December sucked.
Yeah.
It was a long December.
It was a very long December. Mostly work. It was very hard. It was very hard to, have any of the energy to actually film during that. But we're back now.
And I deserve a little more.
So I'm sorry there was no Spidey-Miss last December, but we're going to try and make up for that for at least trying to do Spidey-Miss pretty much most of this year. Also just because it's been harder for us to get the gumption to record. We're not really going to be set to a schedule. Hopefully we'll at least try to do one a month. But cannot guarantee that. But we're back. Speaking of Spider-Miss, here's something we were planning to do, and it's going to be easy for us to review because we're just talking about a movie trilogy. Basically, I realized we've talked about all the other trilogies so far. We've talked about the Raimi trilogy and the Garfield trilogy. We've talked about Spider-Verse, so what the hell? We're going to talk about the MCU home trilogy of Spider-Man. Mostly because I wanted to...
At least we now have all the Spider-Man movies reviewed.
Yeah.
Except the Hammond stuff.
Except the Hammond stuff, but that's going to be a little... Going to take a bit to find. But basically, I also wanted to do, because we have never reviewed Homecoming, because neither of us knew each other when Homecoming came out.
I want to say I didn't even see it when it came out.
I didn't. I waited until Blu-ray.
A friend of mine had gone and seen it and said it wasn't nearly as good as the Toby stuff, so I didn't go see it.
But so yeah, I wanted to kind of finally have all of the movies we have so far, aside from Across the Spider-Verse.
And I want to say MCU wise, we're rapidly chipping away at what we haven't reviewed yet.
Yeah. But because this is also a Spider-Man, this is named after, our channel is named after Spider-Man. I just felt it appropriate for us to have them all. So yeah, this trilogy's kind of weird because, it was not at all in the MCU's plans. For those of you who don't remember, up until 2013, Spider-Man was kept pretty much separately from everything, mostly because Marvel didn't own the rights to it for movie purposes. Those are and still belong to Sony. But basically, during that period, especially particularly because of the fallout after Amazing 2, people were wondering when Spider-Man was going to show up in the MCU. This was also basically the time where everyone learned how movie rights work. And suddenly, everyone acts like they know how movie rights work.
Everybody acts like a fucking lawyer all of a sudden.
Yeah. But basically, given how bad that film did... And I'm not saying that because I think that movie is necessarily completely terrible. I certainly don't like it, but...
You've seen worse.
I've seen worse, but given what happens with it...
I, too, have seen Iron Man 2.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't hate that.
Or Thor Dark World.
What's that?
Or Thor Dark World.
Thor Dark World is absolute crap. Anyone who says it's better than
Ragnarok.
Winter Soldier is wrong. But... Basically, 2012, 2013 was a very interesting time for old Webhead. Particularly because, most of his cartoons were in limbo. The cancellation of Spectacular due to, all the movie rights getting changed and hands being moved. Because, and to be fair, I probably remember this wrong, but I remember hearing back in the day that technically Marvel and Disney do have the rights to Spider-Man animated-wise. But considering how the Spider-Verse is a Sony-led project, I don't believe that's true.
No, and it...
Unless they mean just...
I don't really think anybody knows how the hell the rights work, because none of us are lawyers.
No, that's fair.
And we're all going off secondhand knowledge.
Yeah, And, I only say that because apparently, Disney made Ultimate Spider-Man. So, I guess they own the rights to the TV stuff?
I don't... But Silk.
No, like I said, that's just me.
The Silk Show on Amazon, I don't know. None of us know how these rights work.
No, like I said, it's very, confusing, but that's just me talking about, because I remember hearing that back in the day. I don't believe it as much as I do now, but that's just me kind of talking about how confusing these were. But basically, Disney said, we cannot use Spider-Man because he is owned by Sony, and we can't do anything about it. Well, this led to a lot of outrage because of the fact that the MCU does not have Spider-Man in it. I remember when because this was like my final semester of college when that was all happening. Actually, I want to say it was even earlier than that, 2011. But basically, people wanted Spider-Man in the MCU. This, of course, eventually led to Sony and Disney working to do a rights deal, which you and I later found out was kind of a bullshit rights deal.
Yeah, I still think the terms on that are kind of bullshit.
But we'll kind of get into that as we discuss the films. But basically, they worked out a deal of bringing Spider-Man into the MCU. This, of course, led into his appearance and also heavy reshots of Captain America: Civil War, where he showed up during the airport fight. Also, the extra 20 minutes of just him and Tony Stark talking at his apartment. I do remember that was that's probably like the only reason why I wanted to see Civil War was the fact that as that movie got closer, we got that first shot of him with Cap's shield, and he does the "Hey everyone." I will admit I did fall for the hype with that, but that was mostly because my boy Spidey was going to be in the MCU. What were your thoughts about that when that was happening?
So that period was an interesting period for me because I was starting to get back into superhero related things, but I wasn't into the MCU. I was really only into DC related stuff, and even then it was mainly just Batman stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was not a Snyder fan at any fucking point. But I remember there being a lot of hype when that trailer came out because it's showing Spider-Man at the end of it. And I had still, at that point in my life, not seen any of the Garfield stuff because I remember seeing that and being hella pissed that they fucking recasted Toby.
Yeah.
Because I was still a Toby diehard at that point. Like, I still am. But it was even more so at that point that I didn't want to watch anything Spider-Man if it wasn't him. But so what ended up happening was I remember seeing a lot of the hype and stuff. I wasn't really paying super attention to it. My buddy Brian was kind of excited for it because he'd been following the MCU stuff real close to that point. And a friend of mine, Kylie, at college was excited about it as well. But I remember when she went and saw Homecoming and she came back, she had done a Facebook review of it and had basically talked about how it's become really apparent to me that I've seen the definitive version of Spider-Man on screen, and that was Tobey's stuff. Because I remember tagging Brian in it, and the two of them kind of went back and forth for a little bit, arguing about it. Because there was a point where Brian kind of felt like Holland was better than Tobey, and it's since kind of come back around where we both kind of acknowledge there's good and bad, but I think we both generally agree Tobey is our favorite. So like I said, it was an interesting period for me because I wasn't paying super attention to everything.
I remember when I was coming out, I was kind of in a bad place with Spidey. Otherwise,
well, yeah, because ASM sucked ass at the time.
Yeah, because that was still when I was in when I was still reading Slott's Spider-Man run, and it was
fucking terrible,
a chore to read through. It also like. I finally sat down and watched Spectacular and actually loved it, and was really annoyed at the fact that they canceled that show. Whatever your opinion is on it, I don't think it's better than TASM, or the animated series rather. I don't know why I said that. I meant TSA. But like it was really good for what it was, and like I liked a lot of the acting in that show. But we did lose a very good show when they, especially because it takes so much from the Raimi trilogy. But so when that, and not only that, it didn't help that when that movie came out, or when he was going to show up in the MCU, it was with Civil War, which even when that movie was coming out, I had no care to see that because I didn't like the book when it came out. as someone who was 16 when Civil War came out, I didn't like that book at all.
See, like I remember, I wasn't reading Civil War when it came out, but I had seen stuff about it here and there on the internet, and because this is like the real early days of me being on the internet and being not knowing you can look this kind of stuff up.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously, like, the DK Ultimate Spider-Man guide didn't go that far ahead. But I remember seeing stuff about that, and how, like, I remember just reading, like, a brief synopsis of it on the internet and being like, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah. No, it really is.
And then they got rid of the marriage because of it, linked to it, and I especially was like, well, this is especially fucking stupid.
And if it's in Constellation, like, everybody got fucked in that... Because, like, people always complain about how it ruined Tony. I'm like, it ruined everybody. Nobody looked
And
good.
we're not even discussing how Civil War II was character assassination for Carol. That character still has not gotten over.
No. Civil War 2 is just bad in the fact that they're like, we need to make a new Civil War because the movie's coming out.
Why not just re-release the original in a graphic form?
Well, that would be too much sense.
Yeah,
But
nobody likes Civil War II,
yeah.
so.
Getting back on track, we're not going to talk more about the Civil War movie. We did that already. You all watched me scream and rant and rave like a maniac.
Yeah. Check out our review of it. We did that for the month of America's Ass.
But, in terms of Spidey stuff being there, what were your thoughts on the fact that they had Spider-Man in that? Just before we kind of go in.
Like, when I actually first watched it, you mean?
Yeah, like, just in general.
I didn't know we were jumping ahead to when we've actually seen it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It was okay. For me, that first one really highlights a lot of the stuff with MCU Spider-Man that I don't like, which is, you know, we don't see Uncle Ben get shot. Now, I know before anybody gets the flamethrowers up,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I wanted to see the man get shot a third fucking time.
But they do at least need to...
But there's, like, no mention of it.
Yeah,
barely.
yeah.
And for me, that left a bad taste in my mouth.
The point where I think probably the biggest complaint you and I have of...
Far From Home was that there was no...
grave.
Yeah, there's nothing there at all. Like, so that left a sour taste in my mouth. And then the links and stuff to Tony Stark, again, that is still a major fucking annoyance for me.
Yeah.
But again, like, I guess if you were just looking at it from a film perspective, it does a pretty good job of continuing where Civil War left off and kind of building on this iteration of the character.
I'm sorry, I meant purely his introduction in Civil War. Like, I'm sorry, I just realized what I said. I meant, like, where... Like, how, like his...
We already talked about that in Civil War.
I know, but just to kind of, like, get started with
it was okay. Again, it highlighted what
right.
I don't like. It established that over-reliance on Tony Stark that I really fucking do not like in these movies.
Sorry about that. I just realized I
No, you're good. You're good. But like I said, either way, my answer is still the same. It sets up the over-reliance on stuff that I don't fucking like.
No, that's fair. I think it's a fine introduction to the character, like, because they don't want to just do... I get why they wanted to kind of rush him into being Spider-Man. I like the fact that he is at least a little experienced at being Spider-Man. I do think it, like what you said, it does cheapen him a little bit, especially because he doesn't make his suit.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I think more than anything, the over-reliance on differing characters because of what we know about the deal being that Disney only paid for a couple characters because they didn't want to pay for everybody.
Yeah.
Because, like, the quote we've always seen is that Sony offered them, you know, a price for everybody. Disney said, no, we only want these couple characters because these are the only characters people give a shit about.
Which was Spidey...
Peter, Aunt May, and...
Mary Jane, I think?
No, they didn't, they didn't pay for Mary Jane. You know, it was just... I'm pretty sure it was just those two.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, that instantly for me should have been red flags.
Yeah, like... Because, like, it really shows how little, like, Disney kind of cared.
Yeah, because, like, and I know a lot of people will probably jump in now and be like, well, Michelle is obviously Mary Jane. Yes and no, because they don't call the character that.
Yeah.
Because Disney didn't own the rights to it.
Yeah.
Therefore, in my eyes, while the character is in the slot that Mary Jane would fit in,
Yeah.
Michelle isn't 100% Mary Jane because Disney didn't fucking want to pay for it.
Yeah.
Like that's just how that is. Like, I know, because I know like that's such a hot topic issue because people will instantly call you out for being racist.
Yeah.
When in these like, because I've had that happen to me, and I'm like, I'm not being racist. I'm literally telling you as someone who likes the character of Mary Jane.
That's not Mary Jane.
Yeah, Disney did not pay for the fucking character, so therefore, that character is a new character. Yes, she fits the slot that Mary Jane was in. Yes, they later build upon the fact that isn't she MJ? But like in the very first iteration we see in Homecoming,
yeah,
it's a different character.
Especially because it feels so forced. At the end of it, they point out that her name is Michelle Jones, MJ. It reminded me a lot of how they did Robin in The Dark Knight Rises.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was exactly something for me. So, like, again, like, yes, it's such a complicated thing to talk about because, and it shouldn't have been complicated.
No, and that
I think honestly, if they had been up front from the very beginning that Michelle Jones was supposed to be Mary Jane Watson,
but we couldn't use her.
I think, or even if they had just been up front and bought the character rights, I don't think this would have ever been a fucking issue.
Yeah.
For most people.
Yeah.
People that are fucking racist, they're always gonna fucking have that kind of bullshit going on. But for the majority of people, I don't think it would have been an issue.
No.
If they had actually bought the rights to the character and had been upfront about it from the get-go.
Yeah.
But they weren't. Is the thing that always is kind of where I always go back to is that they didn't because they didn't truly give a shit to buy the rights to this character.
Yeah.
Because they didn't feel that she was important. Which, as a Spider-Man fan who's read the comics, that's pretty fucking frustrating.
Yeah. No,
But it kind of also goes along with what Marvel was doing in the comics at the time, but I digress. But I think that's probably the biggest complaint for me with the MCU Spider-Man movies, but especially this one as a whole, because I feel like this one, more so than anything, really highlights it.
Yeah.
Is they're trying to do so much new stuff. And some of it fires off and some of it doesn't fire off.
Yeah. I think yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that's you really kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, there's stuff in here that makes it feel like what you want.
But then there's other stuff that just, you either like it or you don't. Like, I've had people be like, oh, well, no, the him looking up to Tony Stark and idolizing him makes sense. I'm like, yes and no, but it also, it's not something the character has ever done in the comics.
Yeah, like, the closest we got was Civil War, but even then, the mentorship thing there didn't feel like they were, like, a father and son. It felt like they were brothers, or, like, an older brother and a little, like,
yeah,
brother.
Something like that. Like, it just, like I said, it just leaves a really weird taste in my mouth with it. Is that, like, they and as we talked earlier, they don't really do the origin.
Yeah.
In which, I know, like, some people didn't want to see the origin again. You can make the argument that you don't really need to if it's a character that everybody knows the origin for. Like, the Reeves Batman film did a spectacular job of that, where we didn't need to see the Waynes get fucking shot.
And hell,
for, like, the 20th fucking time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they mention it. The Wayne's death is a central thing that hangs over a lot of parts of the film. Whereas with the Homecoming trilogy, the death of Uncle Ben, they never bring it up like at all.
The closest you get to anything Uncle Ben related is
that suitcase in Far From Home.
And that, like, one line in Civil War, he's like, when you don't use your powers, people die. Like, implying that,
that Uncle Ben did the great responsibility line, but then No Way Home, which I don't want to get too much into that because we're not at that point yet, and plus we've already reviewed that film twice now.
Yeah.
Aunt May does the line in that, which opens up the avenue of questioning, which is, so did Ben ever fucking say that in this universe?
Yeah.
And if so, again, that leaves a weird taste in my mouth, because for me, that's just not right.
I think the other big weird taste for me is how much people want to act like this is the 616 Peter.
And it's not.
When he acts much more like the Ultimate Peter.
Yeah, I mean,
like, even more than Andrew Garfield's Peter. And his Peter was straight up based on
I don't care whatever fucking Feige says. This is not 616.
No.
Eat my ass.
No, I hate that.
I love Kevin Feige to death, and I respect the hell out of him, but
no, this
ain't 616, and he needs to stop fucking thinking that.
No, I low-key hated that. I low-key hated when he brought it
I love that certain stars have called him out for that, too.
Yeah.
Like, Miss Marvel's actress called him out for that multiple times.
Yeah, no, like, I appreciate what he's done for superhero comic book stuff, but no.
Yeah, it's not 616.
It's, and I know someone's probably gonna be like, "Oh, these stories like actually," but like, no, like.
Last I checked, the official guide to the Marvel Universe, when it first brought up the MCU, dubbed it as Earth 199999999. It is that universe. It is not 616. I do not give a shit how much they try to fucking retcon and shove that down my throat. It is not 616. It is Earth 1199.
Yeah.
Arrow sign. Like it's that's what it is.
Yeah. Especially if they wanted to do something weird, like to actually do like straight up 616 characters meeting those characters in the alternate universe. How would that work?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I wouldn't have even minded if they said it was it's 6166.
Yeah,
add
like,
another 6 at the end of it. I
like
would have even been okay with that.
Yeah, like they did with the Ultimate Universe, where it's 6160, I think.
1616.
1616. Sorry,
something like that. But like, yeah, that's a perfect example. Is that I don't like there being two different universes that are called the same thing. So again, MCU to me is Earth 19999. But getting back to the point, I don't like. It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
And I think it's where a lot of people get into arguments about stuff is where people are like, oh, well, you're just mad it's not too much like the comics. I'm like, no, the issue is that there's stuff that just feels so blatantly out of character.
Yeah. Like the fact that there is no Uncle Ben, which I know people try to tell me, well, it doesn't matter. I'm like, but it does.
And again, I will argue the Reeves Batman movie, again, is a perfect example of how you can do a movie where you don't show the origin, but you still have it have importance.
Yeah.
We don't see Thomas and Martha Wayne get shot in The Batman.
Yeah.
However, you know what happened, and they don't shy away from it in the film, and it comes up.
Yeah.
It plays into a very central part of the plot. That to me is the way you should do it. Like,
yeah, no, I agree.
Even if you don't show it, you act like you have. You act like it's there.
Yeah.
That's the way to do that.
And as someone who like, I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to adaptation because certain things you just can't do like one version to another. Like things do have to change so that it can fit into a 2-hour movie or change because like you can't have the Fantastic Four going into the space to beat the commies. Although I think they might try to do that anyways in the MCU. But like basically what I mean is like certain things have to change to fit either the times or the medium that it is being shot in.
Yeah.
However,
there's a right and a wrong way to go about it.
Not just that, there are fundamental things of a character you should not change. Batman does not kill. Uncle Ben teaches Peter the importance of using his powers responsibly. Those are fundamentals of those characters.
To change a part of that, to change something about that is to change a part of the character.
Yeah. Because doing so makes that character feel weird. Like, for example, Snyder's Man of Steel. That character is so much more about his alien heritage.
Oh, here we go. The Snyder bots are going to be pissed now.
I don't fucking care.
No, I don't care either. Especially
your universe is dead.
James Gunn doesn't. Bury it. Consider this a mercy.
Worlds live, worlds die. Nothing will ever be the same. Deal with it. But
somewhere, James Gunn. Not bad, kid.
But basically, there was so much focus on him being an alien, and that he cares more about a world he does not remember because he was a baby, than his adopted home, than the two people that actually raised him. Because he is an alien, he is different, he is Space Jesus. That does not feel like Superman. And I know people like that version of Superman because he feels more human, but he does not feel like Superman. It was the same problem with the New 52 Superman.
And that's why they killed that New 52 Superman. They brought the other one back.
Yeah, like, when you try to change the fundamental core of these characters, it feels weird. I don't mind a mentor-like figure with Peter, aside from his uncle. Hell, that's one of the things we liked about the Raimi trilogy, where they they made Norman kind of a mentor, like feel like a mentor to Peter in that.
Yeah.
It actually made their relationship really interesting because of that.
That's one thing I'll always praise too, not only Raimi but also the Garfield movies, is that
Yeah.
they show Uncle Ben being like an anchor in Peter's life, like
Yeah.
a key figure.
But here it doesn't, and it again completely changes how this character feels. Like, and Grant, I think you and I have come around. Let's start talking about Tom Holland. Just like
Yeah,
we'll
now,
go to the
now that we've
characters.
ripped the MCU Spider-Man stuff apart, we got that argument out of the way.
Like, because for as much as you and I have issues with how they write Spider-Man, I think Holland is a great Spider-Man.
No, I definitely do. I like Tom's portrayal. I don't like him as much as Toby, but I'm also big enough to admit that's all my own inherent bias.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely on par with Andrew.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think he has a great grasp on the character. I think he does know the material.
Yeah.
So it's not like he went into this not knowing anything. Like, I feel like he's done enough stuff where he knows the material. And I think he not only does that, but he also has a good grasp on the Peter Parker side of the character and the Spider-Man side of the character. And I think over the course of these 3 movies, you see that start to come out more and more, like showing up on screen. Now, how much of that is the portrayal versus the writing, I don't know. But I feel like it's one strength I'll give all 3 films in this trilogy is that you see him become the character that he should be.
Yeah.
Or as I like to say, he becomes the character he should have been at the fucking start of the fucking trilogy.
Yeah. Exactly. I do think like there are still the things there that why I like Peter so much as a character and why Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel character. Like I like that he's quippy. I don't think he overstays his welcome when he quips.
Yeah.
Like I think he is
like Brian Michael Bendis writing Spider-Man in an adventure book.
Low key, I hate the way Bendis writes Spider-Man. I won't go into it, but he writes him like he's Deadpool, and I can't stand it. But like this Holland doesn't have like that kind of weird edge they kept trying to give Garfield's Spidey. And I think that I love Tobey as Spider-Man, but I do think sometimes that like Raimi sometimes didn't want him to be nearly as snarky. But I think when he is quip, he is enjoyable. Like I still love that scene where Toby's like, "Quiet, Junior, mom and pop are talking," when he webs Jonah's mouth shut. That was. But like I still love that scene in Homecoming when he fights the bank robbers that are all wearing the cheap Marvel masks. He's like, "Hey, you guys aren't the Avengers."
Yeah, like that was perfect. Like that was completely in character.
And I also like the fact that he really does try to do they make him much more attached to like his neighborhood, to really lean into the friendly neighborhood thing, where like he helps like little old ladies and like he actually tries to help the little guy out more than just worrying about being an Avengers level hero. I say knowing that that's one of my bigger problems with Far From Home, but like at least he does try to help the little guy out too, not just always dealing with the Avengers level threats. And again, like I think he does a really good job of trying to being that awkward nerd Peter can be, but also, being that confident superhero that Peter is. And I think that he does a really great job there. I do think that there are times where he leans more into the Ultimate Peter, where he kind of whines a lot, but again, I think that's just the way they wanted to do this character. Particularly because, again, his mentorship with Tony feels much more like it was in the Ultimate universe. And the MCU itself is an amalgamation of both the Ultimate and Classic. But, like I said, I think he does a fine job. Let's do Aunt May next, because she's probably the other bigger role in this.
Yeah.
I do like her actress, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Marisa Tomei.
Yeah, Marisa Tomei. I think she's really great. I like that they, again... Oh, thank you. I do think they do a good job making her more of like the ultimate Aunt May. Although I think the May from TASM is more like her.
I think the central problem with the MCU Aunt May is that they don't do anything with her really until until No Way Home.
Yeah.
I would argue, like, there's stuff there, but I feel like there's so much more they could have done.
Yeah.
Like, the character is almost like a hollow shell compared to the Aunt Mays that we had in the Raimi trilogy and in the Garfield movies.
It also doesn't help that they constantly want to just use her to make jokes about how she is so fucking hot. And granted, this is the hottest Aunt May you will ever see on screen. But
there's more to the character than
just
like
being
that's
a hot piece of ass.
Yeah, so it's like they could have done more with her.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that was a direction deal. But yeah, like you said, it feels like they kind of they tried to narrow the character down to one trait and just kind of roll with it, and that just doesn't work in this case. Like sometimes that can work.
I will know it's kind of interesting to have her dating Happy, because it kind of reminds me of like her dating Jarvis in the original New Avengers run when Peter was living in the tower. But again, a lot of that just comes down to just being jokes, which is a shame because I like Happy. Like he's one of my favorite side characters in the MCU. But like, they don't do much with it, and it also doesn't help that when Happy and Peter start out together, Happy just treats him like shit because Tony wants him to babysit him. And low-key, that's like one of my biggest complaints in the first of this trilogy is how much Happy just treats Peter like a little brat and like an asshole. Despite the fact he's trying to bang Aunt May. Like, it is literally one of the things that really frustrates me about like how much they treat Happy like kind of garbage in these films.
Yeah.
I guess we could talk about Ned, but there's not really much to him either.
Yeah, and I guess we can bring up the ongoing argument with Ned is that he's kind of borrowed from Miles' universe.
Yeah, he's straight up just Yankee.
Yeah, which a lot of people have brought this up with this iteration of Spider-Man is that the MCU Spider-Man borrows a lot from the Miles Morales character, which opens up an avenue where it kind of becomes a matter of is this whitewashing or is it like it opens up a very complicated avenue that we're not going to get into because I don't think that's an argument that either of us are really prepped to have.
Yeah,
and I don't want to start citing stuff too deeply without knowing what I'm talking about because I don't think that would be a fair thing to do.
No, I agree as well. I also think it's weird that like they do that with him, just as an aside, but yet they also want to hint that Miles exists in the MCU.
Yeah, so it's very weird.
Yeah, like and which is weird anyways to me anyways because like they don't own that character.
Yeah, so it's very much it's complicated.
Yeah. I guess we could talk a little bit about Michelle. Aside from her, like whether or not she's MJ or not,
because again, we already covered that earlier in the video. We're not getting into that anymore.
I find her unbelievably annoying. Like I feel bad saying that because I know there are people that like Michelle.
Yeah,
I don't.
I will admit I liked her the more the trilogy went on.
Yeah.
I definitely think she was a lot better in Far From Home and No Way Home than she was in this. But she is kind of annoying in the first iteration, especially.
Yeah.
But like I said, I will definitely make the argument that I think the character got better the more the trilogy went on. Kind of the same deal with Aunt May. So you almost wonder if it was an issue of them trying to flesh everything out or trying to kind of figure out where they were going. But if we're just talking about just Homecoming, I definitely am going to agree with you that the character feels very, very annoying in the first, like in this one especially.
Although for me, it also this is going to make me sound like a sexist asshole, but I don't mean it like this, but like I do have a little bit of an issue with how the MCU does like girlfriends or female secondary characters in the MCU, where it seems like they want to try and be like, no, these girls aren't damsels in distress. They're important and they matter. But there are a lot of times where they like...
But then they don't really do that much with them. Sharon Carter is a fucking great example.
Well, not just that.
Where she was set up to be, Cap's girlfriend, but then they went fucking nowhere with her.
Well, not just that, but like they have them be like kind of like Iris in the Flash TV show, where they act like they are much more important than they actually are. Like, I still hate that scene where she quips at Doctor Strange in No Way Home about how like this is all his fault. I'm like, Michelle, you do know that like it was also Peter constantly wanting him to change the spell that also did all of this.
Yeah, like I can definitely agree because I had issue with that when we went and saw it, and
No,
I know there's an argument there to be had, but we're not going to get into it.
Like, I like when she actually is a character and not when she's constantly doing the MCU girlfriend trope of being like catty for no reason.
I will definitely agree with you.
I actually take a lot of issue with that with Pepper, particularly in Iron Man 3, where she's constantly mad at him, like, because she wants him to deal with his PTSD, but she does so in a way that's really...
It's really, really toxic.
Yeah, where it's like, I get that he is making these armors as a means of escape, but you need to help him find other avenues then, instead of just constantly being mad that he wants to be in that Iron Man armor 24/7. Because that doesn't help. Like I said, that's really my biggest complaint with Michelle, and one of my biggest problems with the MCU in general is just...
Yeah, we could almost have that be the entire point of a video. It's just, like, issues we have with the MCU. Because, like, I don't think that came off at all sexist. Like, I think that was actually... Because I've heard people make those kind of arguments about the MCU a lot.
Like, for all those people that act like Captain Marvel is, like, a misandrist because of the way she acts, I'm like, she acts like a person.
Yeah.
There are so many female MCU characters that all they are is just snark for the sake of being snark. That was actually probably one of the issues I had with Shang-Chi with
Caddy.
Yeah, where she like is like constantly mad at Shang-Chi for not telling her like his whole life story. I'm like, because he didn't want you getting dragged into a into
some real escalated heavy family drama. Yeah.
But like I like her when she's a character, but like there are times where she's not a character. She feels like we're trying to be progressive with the girlfriend tropes.
But they're doing it in a way that is not very progressive.
If anyway, it makes it worse.
Yeah. Which is a problem a lot of stuff has anymore.
Yeah, but that like I said, there are times when I like her, but that is my bigger issue with her, aside from the fact that they constantly want to try and say that she is Mary Jane when she is not Mary Jane. Especially No Way Home, where it turns out her last name is actually Watson. I'm like, get fucked.
To me, that especially was something so insulting, because I'm like, again, if they had done it that she was Mary Jane from the very beginning, it wouldn't have been such a fucking mess.
Yeah.
Of who this character is. I think that's what a lot of people are more upset about than anything, is that they've gone back and forth with it so many fucking times.
Yeah. And you know what I just realized too? Why she annoys me sometimes? She reminds me of Ultimate Gwen from the Ultimate Universe. And I low-key cannot tolerate Ultimate Gwen.
That's fair.
Like, of all the Gwens I like, it's Spider-Gwen, but like, Ultimate Gwen is obnoxious too. Because she is just every stereotype of goth that there is. And to be fair, Michelle also has a few stereotypes of goth in her as well. But, like, the other thing is now, like, that was one of the things you brought me up. Like, they didn't know what to do with her either, so that's one of the writing with her is so uneven.
And it shows up a lot.
Because I like Zendaya as an actress.
Noticeable. Yeah, same here.
Like, she's a very good actress. But yeah, like, that really, like you said, it's so frustrating with her, because I argue she is, like, the biggest problem with this trilogy.
I think more than anything, I wouldn't even say it's really just that character, like, that is the problem. I would say it's more, that character is a symptom of the larger problem, which is that Disney just doesn't want to just pay the fucking money.
Yeah, that is really the biggest problem with this trilogy.
And I know there's the argument of, well, Sony should sell the rights back to them so Marvel owns everything. No. I don't want the monopoly getting any fucking bigger. Get fucked.
And I'm also one of those people that I'm like, the MCU needs competition.
Yeah, exactly. The MCU, much like Bruce Timm is a fantastic person, he needs somebody to augment him.
Yeah.
But much like, I think Disney is capable of doing great things. They tell me you're brilliant.
Yeah.
They also tell me you're lazy.
Well, not only just that, like...
And it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Sony needs that competition and that guidance just as much.
Yeah.
You know, it's a two-way street.
Like...
So it's very much a thing of... that's probably my biggest complaint with this series is that they miss a real central part of Spider-Man mythos, which is the supporting cast. And it shows in the way that there's almost none of them.
Yeah. Like, why did it take so long for us to get Jonah into the MCU?
Yeah, why did it take so long to have it that Peter has people around him that are a support base? Like, it's such a key part of ASM.
Yeah.
The golden age of ASM from the 60s all the way to the late 70s. It's not just Peter's story. It's the Coffee Bean Gang story.
Yeah.
You know, Harry's story is interweaving into it. Gwen's is interweaving into
People
it.
at the Bugle.
MJ, Betty Brant, Jonah Jameson, like Robinson. It's Spider-Man is so much more than just one character.
Yeah.
It is literally that his story is interwoven into so many other characters.
Like a web.
And vice versa. Yeah. It's a two-way street. When you do a character with just one faucet of that, it just doesn't fucking work nearly as well as the original source material does.
Not only just that, it really shows because, like, one of the other frustrating things that I have with Peter is anytime he interacts with any of the other heroes in the MCU, they just treat him like a little kid. And I get it, he is a teenager. He is also a superhero. Like, you all want him to sit at the
I literally
adults
watched
table.
him whip Falcon and Bucky's ass.
Yeah. He deserves to have a little bit of respect. Like, that... Yeah. You know, fuck it. Let's talk about his relationship with Tony, because in my opinion, it works sometimes, but it doesn't work in other ways. Like, I hate how much he drags Peter into his own war, and then anytime Peter wants to help him any other time, he constantly tells him no. I get why he did that in Infinity War, because that was shit Peter was not ready for.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, in my opinion, that's one of the bigger reasons why No Way Home happened. He constantly needs to prove himself to these other superheroes in a way that is frustrating. Like, and I blame it purely on Tony's shoulders. He gave the kid an inferiority complex. Like, I hate that scene where, like, Tony especially like that the scene in Homecoming that pisses me off so much, where Peter's like, without this suit I'm nothing. Tony, well, maybe you shouldn't have it. And I'm like, I low-key hate that scene.
Look who's talking.
Yeah, because literally you are nothing without that suit. I know you've figured out that you can be Iron Man without the
Billionaire?
suit.
Playboy philanthropist? I'm sorry, I had to bring that up.
You're also the asshole that, like, literally caused a divide in the superheroes that led to the Infinity Saga. Like, and again, that also pisses me off too, because I'm like...
And that also goes back to Tony's unfixed PTSD.
Not only just that, but, like, Peter has actual superpowers, and is just as brilliant, if not more, than Tony. Because I will argue that Peter is actually more brilliant than him and Pym. Like, low-key.
The only one that's smarter than Peter is Reed.
Yeah. Like, I actually will argue that, because Peter is actually brilliant. But, like...
Oh, I can't... That's one thing I hope... Not to get off track, but that's one thing I hope the MCU doesn't do, is I do not want them to dumb Reed down at all. Please
I'm sorry. No.
Like, I'm sorry. He's way fucking smarter than Tony ever was.
Like, the man found an entire dimension, and he made a device so they can talk to God, and travel to God to rescue Ben after he died. But yeah, like, I low-key hate the way, like, well, I don't mind the mentorship idea with Peter, especially because he's a teenager. It still didn't work very well, because they wanted to focus so much on Tony's PTSD of the shit that's happened to him. Which, in my opinion, also kind of ruined the character as the movies went on, because, like, literally everything about it has to be about him. And it frustrates me, because I love that character. And I think pre-Avengers, he was spot on. Post-Avengers, they constantly messed with him in a way that frustrated me. The only thing that fixed is that him and Pepper eventually got married and had a kid. And then they killed him, which... No, we're not going to get into that today. Okay. I know we are 44 minutes in, but real quick before we really do start, what do you think about the original MCU spider suit?
Like the homemade one or the very first one?
The very first one we see of him, like from Civil War.
It's okay.
I like it except for the weird black parts.
I was just about to say the weird black parts are not. I don't like it.
It feels very much like we want this to be our suit. Like instead of just
doing a fucking comic accurate suit.
I do like the fact the eyepieces can emote. That works for me, but like otherwise I hate how like they constantly have to change the suit instead of just giving him like a basic red and blue, traditional red and blues.
Yeah.
Like I didn't mind like him having all these different suits, but at the same time
it feels very much like an attempt to differentiate it.
Yeah.
Or even honestly, I hate to say it, I almost feel like a merchandising thing.
Yeah, low key. Like,
I'm glad I wasn't the only one who thought that.
Which is weird because I'm sure people but Iron Man has all these different suits. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, but he has all those different suits in continuity.
Yeah.
Peter, for the most part, he usually sticks with the red and blues. Hell, they made a big deal in Spencer's run about that fucking one white and black suit, which I actually had the Funko for over on that shelf.
Yeah.
It lasted one issue, and then the next issue he went back to the normal suit. Like,
yeah, like the only other suit that matters to me with Peter is the symbiote suit because let's be honest, that suit
it's just as iconic.
Yeah, and it's super fucking cool. Like they make a big deal about it whenever he puts it on nowadays because it's a big deal.
Yeah, when he puts on a black suit, shit is going down.
Yeah, and he's about to fuck someone's life up. But yeah, I basically what you said. I don't like the fact that like his spider is more like the one on the back instead of just being like an actual spider. But
yeah, I mean, like I like those suits, but especially the Iron Spider one. It feels very much to me.
The Iron Spider suit.
It feels again like they're trying so hard to shoehorn that over reliance on Stark Tech shit, and I just don't fucking like it.
Not like that Iron Spider suit is not comic book accurate, anyways.
Yeah, it doesn't look nearly as good as the actual Iron Spider suit from Civil War, and I don't even like Civil War, but even I think that suit's pretty cool.
No, that suit is amazing, and I wish he would bring it back. Actually, you know what would have been awesome is if like Ben turning evil, he had found the old Iron Spider costume. And he wore it as the new Scarlet, like his new Scarlet, like evil Scarlet Spider outfit. Wouldn't that have been awesome?
Yeah,
that would have been kick-ass. Okay, so let's actually get into the movies now. We're probably mostly just going to talk about Homecoming.
Yeah, because I feel like we should just talk about Homecoming because we've already done Far From Home.
Yeah,
and then we did No Way Home twice. I feel like we just need to do Homecoming.
We'll kind of like after that we'll talk about where the franchise went, and also like kind of some stuff But, like, otherwise, we're mostly going to talk about Homecoming as, like, our synopses of it. So, Homecoming takes place, I think, a month after the events... Or, no, like, a couple weeks after the events of Civil War. Basically, Peter has come back, and Tony has more or less ghosted him because he's doing some other shit. I forget exactly what that all led into, but basically, Tony is busy... doing Avengers shit and trying to get the Sokovia Accords more, like, mainstream. Because Tony is an asshole. And so basically, Peter is living his life. He's had... But, the big overarching thing is he's had a taste of, like, the big leagues when it comes to superheroing. And he wants to be back in those big leagues because he's finally proven himself. And so, more or less, Peter eventually finds out that there is this group that is stealing Stark Tech, led by one Adrian Toomes, a.k.a. the Vulture, who, in a move that would become a pretty common thing with Spider-Man villains in the MCU up until No Way Home, is mad at Tony Stark and wants revenge on him. Basically, Toomes worked for this construction company that helped with repairing New York after the first Avengers film. Stark eventually basically brought his own construction crew in and fixed everything, which caused Toomes' own construction company to go out of business, and he lost a lot of money. Until he started basically collecting scraps of more or less the alien stuff from the Chitauri tech from the first Avengers, and was selling it on the black market, to the point where he even made like the Shocker gauntlets, so he could have like the Shocker, which didn't really go anywhere, and also like it wasn't really the Shocker. Like they had the gauntlets, but it was more like the Ultimate Shocker.
Yeah.
And basically, that is the major plot point: is Peter trying to prove himself to Tony while also realizing that, like, you know, maybe it's not so bad that he doesn't become Spider-Man full-time. And also trying to go to prom, which, Kramer crits you. I actually like that part of the film where, like...
That feels actually, like, very organic.
And not only that, like, something you would see of a younger Peter where he's, like, trying to go to a dance, but at the same time, like, Spider-Man shit happens. Kind of like the first episode of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, where they're going to like a Halloween party.
Yeah, exactly. Like it feels, it's very much a Peter Parker plot.
Yeah. But, and to be fair, Michael Keaton as the Vulture is really, really good. He's probably the best part of this film, aside from Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I will admit, though, he doesn't really feel like the Vulture. Like, I know he's as the Vulture, but he doesn't really feel like what you would traditionally know of the Vulture. And I do like the setup of him knowing that Peter is Spider-Man, but at the same time, Peter's taking his daughter to the prom, who is Sally Averill, I think. Or no, it's
Liz.
It's Liz.
It's Liz Allen.
Sorry, I don't know why I said Sally. She doesn't show up in this. I confuse the two in my head, much like how his... There are some hints that
Sally... Oh, because she doesn't act like Liz Allen. So.
Yeah. Well, that and the fact that, like, Sally was originally Liz's actual name in Amazing Fantasy, and then they...
changed it.
Yeah. That night, I just recently read Untold Tales of Spider-Man, where they had that character more important in the narrative, but... like I said, I like that, like, that little thing there. Like, it felt very much like how, like Peter was friends with Harry, and his dad is the Green Goblin.
Yeah, so it was again a hinting at something that has happened in the mythos before, but I think in a way that it makes you want the actual mythos more.
Yeah, and to be fair, I do like the fact that, like, even though I have issues with Ned, I do like the fact that he like Peter has someone he can confide in at this point, because not even Aunt May knows that he is Spider-Man at this point. That doesn't happen until No Way Home, or not No Way Home, Far From Home. That is one of the bigger problems with the Home trilogy, is that they have very similar names, and I get them mixed up in my head. And like I said, they do at least establish the world Peter is in. My only real complaint with it is that, like, Midtown High is much more, again, like Miles' school, where it's more of like a science themed school where, like, the really brilliant kids go. Midtown High was not like that in the original ASM. It was
just a normal high school.
Just a normal high school. Peter didn't get, like, to go to, like, a really major campus until he went to Empire State University, thanks to his science scholarship. Yeah, that's more or less the major plot. And I do like this film. I think it's better than Far From Home. But it still has the issues I don't like in Far From Home. For one, I can't say that these first two films don't take place in New York very much. Like, it was cool to see Spider-Man in different places, but, like,
at the end of the day, we associate Peter Parker with New York.
Like, that is his jungle. That is where Spider-Man thrives, is in the urban jungle. Like, that, like, you see him climbing skyscrapers, swinging through the air, and you don't really get a lot of that in this trilogy. Like, I mean, great, I did like him fighting the Vulture in, like, the urban, like a suburb. It was kind of fun seeing how, like, he's not really able to deal with it, kind of like that one Spider-Man comic where he's in the suburbs. And how, like, he's not really in his element there. But I don't know, it feels weird. Especially, like, we go to Washington, D.C. in this movie. And he fucks up the Washington Monument.
And yeah, because as Jonah will point out in No Way Home, that he literally has a vendetta against national landmarks.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird thing where they constantly kept taking him to, like, these...
It was one thing I liked about the No Way Home extended cut, is that they kept that line in that he was going to screw up another national landmark because calling back to something not only from the other films, but they also had a comment about it in the early part of No Way Home.
Yeah.
So, like, again, I wish they would put the fucking extended cut out on Blu-ray already.
Yeah, you and me both. Do you have any thoughts of this movie or like anything you want to talk about?
I like parts of it. I think there is the hints of a good movie in there.
Yeah.
But there's just so much stuff that either leaves a bad taste in my mouth or that I just don't like.
I think the other thing is that there's a lot of, hey, do you remember this from the comic? That they, like,
they do it in a way that doesn't feel natural in terms of storytelling.
I think for me, the biggest one is when they try to reenact the scene, the famous Spider-Man comic where he's trapped under all that rubble, and he has to push it off of himself. And it kind of works. Like, he calls out for help because he's stuck and he's scared. And I like the fact that his mask has fallen off and it's in the water and you see, like, his reflection with the Spider-Man mask. I think that part works where he has to remind himself that he is Spider-Man, that he can do this. But I don't know how natural it feels to me. That's, like, my biggest complaint with that. Is more just it has a weird feeling to it that I'm not sure I like. I don't know how I feel about the ending. The ending feels very much like, hey, the next Avengers film is coming. Then it ends on the cliffhanger of did Aunt May find out that Peter is Spider-Man and what happens there. And that doesn't get resolved until Far From Home.
Yeah. So once again, bringing back the issue we have with so much MCU stuff is that there's just fucking setup.
It also gets frustrating because, like, basically everything in No Way Home, or Homecoming, is completely thrown to the wayside come Far From Home. And, like, basically Liz is completely shoved out of the movies.
And we don't even get a mention of her again until No Way Home. And it's very brief and it's on a magazine cover. You wouldn't know unless you're actually looking for it.
Like, especially kind of frustrating because, like, it would have been nice in Far From Home because he is interested in MJ, but, like, maybe he has second thoughts because of what happened with him and Liz. But, like, nothing really comes of that. She's just a girl he had a crush on, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which I get that's more realistic in terms of, like, how teenage boys are. But this is not an ordinary teenage boy. Like, that's one of the things that always frustrates me when people are like, well, he is just a teenager. I'm like, but he's not a normal... like, these teen heroes are not normal. Like, they risk their lives on a regular nightly basis or, like, daily basis. These characters are not just completely average teenagers. Like that's a big complaint I have with teen superheroes anymore, is, like, that, well, they do this stuff because they're normal teens. I also cannot fucking stand the Flash that they...
No, I'm not a fan of that Flash either. I mean, I give them credit where credit is due in trying to make an updated attempt at Flash rather than just going the stock jock bully route that we've seen them do a couple different times.
But it still doesn't hold up compared to the way they did Flash in TASM. AKA making him feel like an actual, like fleshed out character.
Yeah, like, even in just, like, I still love that scene in the Garfield films where they bring up that, like, after Ben's death, he goes to him and he's like, hey, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I liked that. That was a good way to do a fleshed out Flash character and show that there's more to him than just the bully aspect that we saw a lot in the Raimi trilogy.
I also don't even really understand why he hates Peter in this universe. Like, he just hates him because he's a nerd? But, like, he's a nerd, too? Like, he's also a nerdy science geek?
Yes, it's just weird.
Like, it would be one thing if he was, like, a typical jock. Because, like, typical jocks can be that way. Because, like, that's just how, like, sometimes it is in high school. But I also don't know what I feel about the Betty Brant in this universe. She's kind of fun, but, like...
She looks so much like Gwen.
Yeah!
Is my issue. Like, again, I'm like, are you just amalgamating characters again because you don't want to fucking pay?
Yeah.
Because, again, that's not cool. Don't do that.
Although I will give credit to whoever's making these movies. They at least had her and Ned hook up for a little bit to reference, like, the actual Ned and Betty got married at one point.
Yeah.
So, like, I will give them credit there that they at least, like, somebody must have been like, hey, let's do this. It'll be something the fans will like. But, yeah, it's so weird with her. I'm trying to think of some other things. I will admit, it was really frustrating that they gave us a hint of the Iron Spider suit, but then, like, it doesn't look like what you imagine with the Iron Spider suit, so it doesn't really feel like a yay kind of thing.
Yeah. If there's one thing I definitely will argue with the Homecoming trilogy as a whole, since we're kind of getting to the point where we're going to start wrapping up, is it has promise and there's hints of it, but it doesn't always deliver on it.
Yeah.
I honestly think that the one movie out of the whole trilogy that really to me felt like a Spider-Man movie was No Way Home.
Yeah.
And I know there's going to be some people that will be like, "Oh, that's just because it's going off nostalgia," and I'm like, "No, not really."
Yeah.
Because you think that because Toby and Andrew show up in it, but
Yeah.
the thing is, Toby and Andrew's movies felt more like Spider-Man movies than Tom's do at most points. So it's just really, really weird that the movie that's almost like we've said is a reset.
Yeah.
Honestly, is the one that feels like the actual Spider-Man movie.
And even then,
which I'm sure was by design, because it kind of feels like they started listening to what people were saying and finally were like, okay, well, how about this? And then everybody liked it because we're all like, this is what we wanted. This feels like a Spider-Man movie. So that's kind of the direction they're going to go with now. But you get what I'm saying, is that there was a lot of promise that doesn't get followed up on.
Yeah, and it's not like you and I didn't have issues with Far From Home, or No Way Home.
Yeah, I had issues that it basically took the One More Day storyline, which I already don't fucking like.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons that we've discussed multiple times on the show.
Yeah. It is the best version of of One More Day.
Yeah, but like we had issues with it all like at the same time. I mean,
it
wasn't a perfect movie.
Yeah, like you and I both agree. There's the ending feels very much we are resetting. We are doing something different.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling like a natural moving on to something different. I will admit one of the bigger frustrations I have is how much these movies feel like they're in a vacuum from everything else. Like, I brought this up a while ago, but like, I hate the fact now that Falcon and the Winter Soldier makes Far From Home even kind of worse. Because, low-key, that either takes place slightly before Far From Home or slightly after. And either or, there is a terrorist group that's running rampant in Europe. And they took this group of high school students on a tour through Europe?
Yeah, that's like saying, hey, for a class trip, we're going to Ukraine.
Like, and I know people will be like, well, you can't just stop by fear. I'm like, they're a high school.
You realize how hard it would be? Stuff like that. You have insurance.
Yeah.
You realize how hard it would be to have that go on? I don't even know if the State Department would authorize you going over.
Yeah. Like I didn't realize that until we were watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I was like, hold on, this is like a terrorist group, and they've clearly been established since like the end of the blip. Like because their whole reason is because of the fact there's all these people that
and there's just no mention of it. Which, granted, obviously that came out before, so yeah, I mean,
yeah, but
if we're talking about in universe, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And now because like it kind of like because that movie still existed, they should have like tried to make it mesh better.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that like technically Hydro Man exists, but like, does he? Because like clearly he does attack Spider-Man, so he's not a hologram like the other three were.
Yeah.
So clearly Hydro Man must be a real character. Also just the fact that, my God, I am so tired of people trying to like justify that Mysterio actually was a hero.
Mysterio's a villain. I've said this before multiple times. Mysterio's a villain. End of the story. If you think otherwise, you don't know the fucking material. End of the story.
And while he's a great character, I hate the fact that
Seethe, cope, go outside, touch grass. I rejected your mother's sexual advances. I'm going to put you in my cringe compilation. Go yell at Reddit about it. Do I need to keep going?
based.
Chad Bill.
I also just, again, like, he's a great Mysterio, but I hate that his whole reason for doing all that was because...
It's like the Tony Stark. And that has been our complaint about that since that fucking movie came out.
Yeah. Which I forget, I hate bringing it up again, but I'm like, we were talking about the trilogy, and that's, like, a major issue we had.
Yeah.
And, like, because, again, I love that Mysterio. He is pretty much pitch perfect.
Well, again, it centrals back to what I talked about earlier, the over-reliance on Tony Stark.
Yeah. I hate the fact that, like, it feels like the only superhero that Peter routinely interacted with was Matt Murdock. And he's only in one of these films. Like, it's so frustrating how, like, that's, like, the only hero that he gets along with. And it's only because, like, they don't know each other outside of their costumes. Like, we brought in Doctor Strange, a character that was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, just like Peter was. Like, the two of them have, like, history together just because of that. And, it's so frustrating because Strange just treats him like a little kid throughout most of that film. I also don't buy that, like, that Strange was just stuck in that limbo dimension because he was webbed in the mirror dimension for, like, a day. Like, a day and a half. Like, I know, like, there's issues with that Strange because it varies how powerful he is. But, like, in the first Doctor Strange film, he had a mastery over that mirror dimension pretty fucking fast.
Yeah.
Which, granted, I like it, I didn't like, because I was just like, it was cool that Peter was able to, like, beat him in a way by using math to... But at the same time, I'm like, that should have only stopped him for, like, a little bit. He is the Sorcerer Supreme. I don't care that Wong is currently the Sorcerer Supreme.
I also love that No Way Home, they were going to have Mysterio and Strange fight at one point, and I'm like, that would be such a one-sided fucking fight.
Yeah, because, like, his illusions aren't even real. They're all holograms. He doesn't even have the gas that makes you see shit. Like, he doesn't...
A lot of birthday parties.
Yeah. That would have been hilarious. Him being like, I am the great Mysterio. I am this super powerful superhero.
Yeah, sure you are.
Yeah, sure you are. I took away all your illusions. You're just a guy. So I'm going to tie you up now. I also have to stop the party Wong's having with Madison with 2 A's. Why, but not where you think.
I think we've really covered everything when it comes to this film. Do we want to move on to ratings?
I think there was one thing... No, actually, I think... Because I talked about Flash, and that was really one of the things I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so do we want to move on to ratings?
Yeah, why not?
I admittedly don't remember what I gave Far From Home, so I don't know if I'm going to be right around the same rating or if it's going to be higher or whatever. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. It's got potential, and it's not a bad movie, but it's certainly not a really great film in my eyes.
So you're doing Far From Home first?
No, I did Homecoming.
Oh, okay.
I didn't remember. I didn't think we were doing Far From Home because we already did that. Remember, we rated it.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Homecoming, I probably would give. Probably a 6. It's not good enough for me to be a 7, but it's passable and helps. Michael Keaton's a really great Vulture.
Yeah. He's Michael Keaton.
Yeah. Nah, there's some good action moments in it, so like it's not like I'm bored up to tears watching it. Yeah, I would say I do think it's probably better than Far From Home, but that doesn't really say much because I think Far From Home is the worst of the 3. What is it with the MCU and making the second one really bad? Of any of like these characters in movies. Yeah, like. Especially because it's a starting point for this character, almost none of it really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, even the Vulture, because, like, they had him in Morbius, and I think that's probably the last time we're going to see him.
Well, they said that's not the MCU Vulture. That's
right.
Which I'm like, they're trying to justify that at this fucking point.
Which, like, low-key it was he
Yeah.
came out. It's just the movie did really bad, so now they're...
And then I heard that they re-edited it in parts, but when the movie came out, it was still in there. Like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah. I don't really care one way or the other, if I'm honest. Yeah. Like I said, this trilogy was really frustrating, but then it ended on a really high note. But, like, otherwise, the Spider-Man stuff just feels like such a chore. And again, I almost feel like you can watch, like, the entire MCU except these movies, aside from maybe No Way Home. It really doesn't add much to the rest of the MCU as a whole, because it feels so bubble.
They don't ever really address stuff from it.
And I get part of it's because they don't want to pay Sony a lot, but, like... It's really frustrating when everything else is so interwoven and connected with each other in the MCU. Like, one of the things that people like about the MCU. And then Spider-Man's just kind of right there. Like, imagine if, like, the X-Men were still owned by Fox, and they did eventually bring the X-Men into the MCU, and they did it like that.
Everybody would be mad.
Well, especially because the X-Men are not just a little group of superheroes in a school. The X-Men are an entire universe into themselves in the Marvel Universe. Like, there's 7 different teams of mutants at any point in time. Like, the fact that, like, some of these mutants' stories are interwoven with other Marvel characters. The weird shit Deadpool does on a regular basis. Like, it would just be bad. And that's my biggest complaint with the Spider-Man stuff in the MCU. They want so badly to have it in there so people will stop asking them to do it.
But they don't want to actually pay to do stuff or have it actually mean something.
Yeah, like, going forward, I would hope they finally see that you need to commit with Spider-Man.
Like, everybody, like, oh, it takes place, the final scene takes place during the finale of Hawkeye. So why the fuck does he not pop down there and help?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, it's big. I know the real life answer is that Disney doesn't want to fucking pay the money.
Yeah, but, like, but again, that's very confusing because, like, Peter wouldn't just not stop and help if he was swinging over Rockefeller Plaza and he saw all that shit happening.
It's very frustrating on a lot of different levels.
Hell, if that police scanner is what they're saying it is, that's what the crime Peter's going to stop. Although, admittedly, wouldn't that have made the Hawkeye TV show ending really hilarious? Like,
that really would have.
Like, all of a sudden,
who the
like,
hell are you?
I'm Spider-Man. All right. We did fight together, but I feel like I used to know who you were.
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting if they
Yeah.
touched on that, but again, that would require Disney paying some fucking money, and they don't want to ever pay anybody any money.
The other problem is it's very up in the air what's going to happen with Spider-Man in the MCU right now because Tom's thinking about quitting. Because he doesn't think that Spider-Man should be 30 in the MCU.
I haven't seen that.
I thought that was one of the reasons why he didn't want to... Like,
he wanted a break.
Oh, he just wanted a break. Okay.
He wanted a break.
I thought I read somewhere he's like...
I haven't read that.
Okay, maybe I just made that up, or maybe I just saw the article title and I was just like, whatever. So fair enough.
Source, we got this covered.
It might have been. I don't know. There's a lot of Marvel news and
or CBR.
Like, superhero news that just comes across my thing, and I see the title and I'm just like, I don't care. And then it turns out I was wrong anyways. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But like I said, like it's still very up in the air. Especially because they want to try and do the live action Spidey stuff with the Spider-Verse animated stuff, and I'm like, I don't know about that, guys. Like, I would like to hear the live action guys in the Spider-Verse. I don't know how much I would want the Spider-Verse to mesh into the MCU. That seems very messy and complicated. But yeah, and the other thing is they can't make Spider-Man go away like they did with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. They were trying to push the Inhumans over them so that until they got the movie rights. Because, like, as much as you can do that with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, more so the Fantastic Four and the X-Men in my opinion, you can't do that with Spider-Man. Because he is literally the face of Marvel. It would be like if Warner Brothers were like, no, stop using Batman. Like, we don't see Batman. That would be suicide. That would be marketing suicide. Although I do wonder if that's one of the reasons why they constantly stop trying to undo One More Day in the comics.
That's a rant for another time.
That's a rant. No, I'm sorry. That's just me talking out loud. But yeah, guys, that's kind of it for this. I'm sorry it's not nearly as positive as some of our other Spider stuff, but
I feel like we had touched on all these complaints and stuff. I feel like we had touched on them before.
yeah.
And we had kind of been like, oh, we'll put it off for another episode. Oh, we'll put it off for another episode.
Yeah.
Hey, we brought it up again, but we'll put it off for another episode. Now we can finally be like, we've touched on it. We don't need to bring it up again.
Yeah. Going forward, we're going to try to be much more positive about the MCU Spidey. I mean, I say that more like we're going to try and keep an open mind. But yeah, that's probably going to wrap it up. I'm sorry this is like the only Spider-Man stuff you've got right now, but don't worry, we're going to do some more Spidey stuff down the line. Probably more comic book stuff. We've got some ideas for talking about the original Clone Saga, because we've only talked about the 90s Clone Saga. And then eventually touching the other Clone Saga. But yeah, like I said, I hope you guys stick around. We got a lot more stuff coming from Remember the Hyphen. But until then, guys, I'm Zangetsu134.
And I'm Average Joe Squad.
And as always,
We ask you,
remember the hyphen?
and take care.
Flip.